and welcome back to another episode of Indexer Office Hours. Today is the 6th of September, and this is 𝗨𝘀𝗲𝗂𝗪 75. If anyone is new to Indexer Office Hours, this is the town square for indexers, where ecosystem participants come together to talk about important topics relevant for indexers. Today's conversation will be broken down into 4 segments, the first being opening remarks, where I start the conversation with any relevant information for indexers. And that usually entails me speaking about the latest GRT-IQ episode, which if you guys aren't already listening to GRT-IQ, I would highly recommend. It is one of the best ecosystem podcasts. The next section is Repo Watch, where we'll have Anna cover all of the latest updates to the most important repos you need to know about as an indexer. And then the next section will be Protocol Watch, where we'll have Juan, who tells us everything about the important updates in relation to the protocol. And then finally, we move into the open discussion section, where we generally have one or more topics to discuss amongst each other. And at that point, we love participation. So if you do want to get involved, please do get involved via voice or chat. So as a reminder, this session is recorded and will be posted to YouTube. So if you're concerned about privacy, please bear that in mind. And with that, I will move forward into the opening remarks. So GRT-IQ episode 80 was with Ryan and Vincent from Messari. And with this particular episode, it was a 2-part episode where you had Ryan and Vincent both have separate conversations with Nick. So as many of you know, before I get into the good stuff with each of those parts of the episode, Messari was recently given a subgraph developer grant that was announced during Graph Day 2022. And for Ryan's section, he basically covered the high-level description about what the subgraph developer grant was all about, you know, how it came together, what this means for Messari and the graph. He also spoke about his advice for other entrepreneurs, his vision for what's happening next in Web3, and then speaks about a very interesting tweet that went viral of his a while ago. And then you had Vincent, who is an engineering manager who works at Messari and is involved in managing all of the work in relation to the core developer grant. And in that conversation with Nick, he described the nature of the work that he does and the work that they contribute to the graph ecosystem, and also how other people can get involved, and also how Messari uses the graph. So with that, I highly recommend you listen to the episode, and I will hand it to Anna to take us into Repo Watch.
Thank you, Abel, and hello everyone, and welcome to this regular segment. As always, you will find all detailed release notes and PRs on the agenda, the 𝗨𝘀𝗲𝗂𝗪 agenda. And before we start talking about the details on the different releases with major blockchain clients, I want to remind you that I will only be mentioning clients that have had new releases this week or last week, because last week we didn't have a normal 𝗨𝘀𝗲𝗂𝗪, and all other repos of interest can still be found on the agenda with the details of their last release version. So with that, let's just go into major blockchain clients. So we have had, since last time we spoke, we have had 2 new Aragon releases. So version 2022-08-03 alpha and version 2022-09-01 alpha. Both of these versions mainly contain fixes. It seems from other indexers, it seems like neither one of these versions seem to be stable enough. And as far as I understand, the last Aragon version that has worked for indexers has been version 2022-08-01. And rather than me talking through every single detail, I'd like to ask for comments from the community on if you agree that the last stable Aragon version is 08-01. And for this, I'm just gonna pick out, Payne is not here. Yeah, Right. I don't see some of the usual crew. Has anyone tried the newer versions of Aragon? Okay, I will. Okay, Matthew Darwin hasn't tried it yet. Okay, well, I will put a notice in this note. Okay, so Vince has tried version 0802, and that has been working. And Mark Andre is running version 901. Mark, please let us know if you finished the sync and if everything goes according to plan. Sam Vincent from Data Nexus is running 0802. So we'll keep on updating on this. I'll put additional notes for Aragon just to make sure that everyone has the right information. Moving on to Streaming Fast Get, we have had a few new releases. We have had on Firehouse 2, we have had Polygon version 0216, Get version 1.10.23, and BSC version 1.1.12. We have also had a new version of Get, version 1.10.23 for Firehouse version 1. On Get, new release is version 1.10.23. So if you remember last time we spoke, a new release version 1.10.22 came out. That release ended up having a regression issue. So this release fixes the previous release. Before we were advising indexers to not upgrade to version 1.10.23. This release, so 1.10.23, is now ready to try. It's a hotfix release for pruning regression that fixes a regression from previous release. There are a few things that you need to do if you've updated to version 1.10.22. So that is ensure that your node has all of the data by rewinding your local chain to a block before you update it. And the other brute force alternative to that is to resync after an update, which you can do so by deleting your chain data folder. Again, please let us know if you have any issues with this release, and you will find more detailed release notes in the agenda. Since I have covered them in previous call, I will not go through that. We have had a new release for Streaming Fast Ethereum. So the very important here is that Streaming Fast Ethereum repo has been renamed to FireEth, so Firehouse Ethereum. The release version is version 1.0.0. And there's a lot of changes, mostly Ethereum v2 changes that fix no more forked blocks in the merged blocks bundles, since the merged blocks are now produced only after finality has passed. So yes, very big release, this one. So new release Ethereum version 1. For Firehouse version 2 protocol, a new compatibility layer has been added to still support Firehouse version 1, but only for specific values. Otherwise, the Firehouse blocks protocol is now under Firehouse v2, which was bumped from Firehouse v1. And then we also have, in terms of block indexers, we have removed some irreversible indices completely. There have been some deprecations. The call and log indices, they have been deprecated. and instead have been replaced with combined index, and also moved out streaming ETH, SFETH tools generate command to a new standalone app that can be launched separately. Since I see Matthew here, I'm gonna take advantage that you're here and ask if you want to add anything about this release that I haven't added or that we should know. I will take that as a no. And okay, so no, nothing to add. Okay, cool. Thank you. And moving on to GraphStack, no new releases for GraphNode. However, on Indexer Service and Agent, we have had, I'm so sorry. For Indexer Service and Agent, we have had a new release. So version 0.23. So 0.23, yeah. Want to thank all of the contributors, so Hope, Ford, Eva, and Adam for all of the PRs that went into this release. Some worth mentioning, some changes. So for Indexer CLI, there has been indexing rule parser error fix. Then we have a new command to batch approve queued. There have been a few updates on the docs. So to recommend Indexer component versions, recommend GraphNode versions, and in general additional documentation. And then for Indexer Common and Indexer Agent, there's an including reason for actions being added to a queue, plus additional fixes and a default for cost model plurals and tests. Thank you everyone who has worked on this. I would like to pass it on to the group for additional comments. Has anyone tried the new version of Indexer CLI?
Yep, I did. Looks like it's running fine. I know a bunch of bugs that I reported to Ford and Hope have been fixed, especially for most notable being on the Indexer service side. The cost models, the global cost models weren't working before, but they do now. So feel free to set up global cost models. And yeah, on the Indexer agent side and Indexer CLI, a bunch of bugs have been fixed. And also worth reporting, I wasn't here when we were talking about Aragon, but just a quick heads up that if anyone is running Aragon with Polygon, don't upgrade further from 0801 because the execution is broken in the new versions. So 0803 basically just breaks the DB and you can't downgrade, so you're forced to resync the whole Polygon archive.
Thank you for that, Payne. Yeah, that's what I was trying to communicate to the community. So thank you for clarifying on that. And has anyone else tried any of these releases and has anything else to share? So Sidex says, I have a question. Would you like to unmute yourself? Or type it in? While you ask the question, I think I will hand over to Protocol Watch if there's nothing else from anyone else. Okay. Juan, over to you.
Thanks, Anna. Okay, so I'll try to be brief with Protocol Watch, but we have a ton of stuff. So going into forum governance, we have an update to the GIP for the epoch block oracle. Basically, a few changes to be able to introduce on-chain governance aspects to the EBO. Previously, everything was kind of like handled by the oracle itself, and now we have kind of like a new implementation that adds permission sets. So we have the council as the on-chain governance aspect, basically. Then we have 𝗨𝗂𝗂𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧 because of all the new support. I think there are a few things that still need to make sure we have working, like the zero query fee vouchers, but I think it should probably be moved forward in the future. Next on, we have a new GIP which does not have a number yet, which is substreams into subgraphs, a simple integration. I don't know if everyone disconnected, but I got disconnected from Discord, so can anyone hear me?
Yep.
Loud
Awesome.
and clear.
I was discussing like substreams into subgraphs, a simple integration. This is mostly just to add substreams data as a data source so that we can start to utilize it in subgraphs. The implementation is quite detailed, and there has already been a few points of feedback from Matthew regarding the usage of JWT tokens. So anyone interested, feel free to go into the GIP thread in the forum. Then we have our first GRC for Graphcast, the gossip network for indexers. I'm not going to go into much detail because we're going to discuss this later. But yeah, it's amazing to have the first GRC, and it's also quite detailed, so we'll go into that in a lot of detail later. Next on into forum research, we have the liquid delegation tokens GIP, which is also yet to be numbered. There has been a little bit of feedback from Chris regarding the importance of having liquid delegation tokens natively instead of extra protocol. For anyone that's interested, just go follow the topic. For anyone following in the Notion document, you can probably see that there's like way too many PRs for the contracts repository. Almost all of them are L2 related. So yeah, there's a lot of work going on for the L2 integration, for the L2 migration, sorry. There's a lot of PRs merged and a lot of PRs updated. So yeah, I'm not gonna detail all of those, but there's a ton of PRs, and if you want to go check them out, it's on the Notion document. There's also a small update for the core network subgraph, but it's just a minor GitHub workflow refactor, so nothing noteworthy. And with that, we're over with Protocol Watch, and I'm going to pass it on to Abel.
Thank you very much. So for today's part of the open discussion, we have two separate conversations, which I'm very much looking forward to. The first is a conversation with 𝗨𝗂𝗂𝗧 from Graphlooker, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of all of the topics there. And then we have Petko, who's going to be telling us a bit more about the Gossip Network. So if anyone, Graphcast. So if anyone has any questions there, please do send them to Petko's way. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and then introduce the next topic, which is a conversation with 𝗨𝗂𝗂𝗧 from Graphlooker. Just to shout to everyone, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. Perfect. Well, thank you all. And let's get into it. So the agenda for today's conversation is the following. So last week we had the Indexer 101 session. And so naturally, we'd like to start the conversation with a bit about the story behind Graphlooker and how they became an indexer recently. Then we're going to look into how the Graphlooker indexing team leverages Graphlooker, which is a new product they built, and Graphlooker as a way of analyzing subgraphs. And then we're going to discuss some useful metrics for indexers and other ecosystem participants using Graphlooker. And then we will be going into Q&A and eventually discussing the topic down there if we have enough time. So 𝗨𝗂𝗂𝗧, I want to invite you to the stage and maybe start by sharing a bit about Graphlooker and the new index you guys set up.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so thank you for the opportunity, Abel, and good to be part of Indexer community. So so why we became Indexer is for quite some time, we're building a lot of subgraphs, were building subgraphs for Ethereum, for Celo, Moonbeam, for different networks. And it was, and also like running graph nodes for like different networks. So it was for us like it was a natural transition to be an indexer. In the back of mind, we always wanted to be an indexer, and one of the main reason is with indexer you are like always at the cutting edge of graph technology. I mean, you're always aware of the tech upgrades and new features which are being released, and also like the gas fees was low at the time when we set up. Uh, and we have we have a dedicated ops team uh, who to take care of the indexer and upgrades, different upgrades. So we have a dedicated team which manages all the ops operation for the indexer.
Wonderful. And then maybe it might be a good idea to speak about your infrastructure setup and share with folks who maybe are newer to indexing about how you guys are approaching this.
Yeah, so in terms of infrastructure, I mean, we are running Aragon Ethereum node uh, on dedicated Hetzner servers. Also, our graph node is set up on the dedicated machines. Uh, so before setting up, we also did analysis, cost analysis. Uh, I mean, what kind of different clouds available. Also, like discussed with existing indexers like Payne, other people. So setting up our own Aragon Ethereum node was like very wise decision. I mean, it gives a lot of performance boost in terms of indexing the subgraphs. So that's our setup is, and along with that, we have our own like monitoring and alerting setup. So like we use AWS health checks for the query nodes, and also like custom monitoring and alerting scripts are there. So uh, in case something happens or the indexer becomes unavailable, we get immediate alerts with our scripts. So that infra is there, and of course like as we have a dedicated team which constantly like looking for latest upgrades uh, which needs to be done. So yeah, that's how our infra is.
Amazing. And then maybe it might be useful for all of the folks who are also newer to indexing, maybe to talk a bit about your operations and how you guys have set that up. I'm hoping that many of the folks who have joined us for the first time are newer indexers joining the MITS program, so that could be a useful topic to cover.
Right. So yeah, so setting up indexer, if you have set up a like indexer, uh, I mean, so you have it means like you understand the technical parts of it, you know the ops operation and done that. But to get I mean, to get a good flow of revenue or to get good delegation, you have to be proactive in the community. So there are very good, I would say, like Discord and Telegram channels. There is Graphronauts, there is Curation Station Telegram channel, there is Indexer Delegator Discord channels are there. Who like you can ask questions and you get a reply quickly, or if uh, and so slowly like you develop that knowledge, and let's say if other peoples are also facing that, other indexers, delegator, curators, so for us we would like to be more proactive and help those users, help them understand the protocol economics, the different tools available, maybe how to use them. uh, in terms of operations, we are also constantly looking to optimize our APR and allocations. So I would say that like when we set up the indexer 3 months back versus how we are allocating, we are allocating more wisely, more in a more optimized way, because because of awareness of the different tools available, the impact of different allocations. So that is helping. And also, like, as a small indexer, I would say is you don't need to wait for 28 days epoch to close an allocation. Given an opportunity, if you found a good subgraph coming up which can give a good return, just like close the allocation early and allocate it. So and so we have also like applied for the MIP program. So it gives new indexers as well as the existing indexers a chance to set up like multi-chain graph indexer. So I think the new indexer should apply, new indexers as well as the existing indexers should apply for that, and like set up a multi-chain indexer. So I mean that's like we have applied for the MIP and waiting for the KYCs to get confirmed.
Yep, I definitely agree. Everyone who can should definitely apply for the MIP program. It is a great opportunity to step in as an indexer for your new one, or if you're an existing one, to kind of branch out into newer chains. So the section that I'm sure many folks are excited for is maybe a discussion about how you guys leverage Graphlooker and how potentially other indexes could leverage Graphlooker. So yeah, would love to hear your thoughts there, and maybe even share your screen to walk us through what Graphlooker looks like.
Sure. So Graphlooker is a real-time subgraph explorer and visualizer, and maybe I can share this. Is my screen visible?
Yes, I can see
Yeah.
it.
So it's a real-time subgraph explorer and visualizer backed by graph grants. So basically, like this was previously an internal tool which our internal team were using it for like subgraph testing. So basically, let's say if you deploy a subgraph, is it are the entities correct? Are like are the data coming latest? So for those purposes, we are using it, and we thought like along with that, you can do a lot of things. For example, you can do filtering, browsing of subgraph data.
It's 11 o'clock.
And like you can actually download that data to CSV and do more like slicing and dicing. So we thought like let's make it public and open source, so it will be helpful to greater community. So how you can use Graphlooker is you can just like provide any subgraph endpoint. It could be your custom your node subgraph endpoint. It could be a hosted service, or it could be a studio subgraph endpoint. And let's say if you click on Uniswap, so you'll see like all the entities on the left side. You can just click on it, and the data will load in real time. And in that, you can put different filters. For example, you can say I want previous 5-minute data, and this data is like directly coming from Uniswap subgraph. So and you can like do sorting, ascending, descending, and you can apply like multiple filters and click on this button, download to CSV, and all this data, like your filtered, paginated, sorted data will be downloaded to CSV, and that you can like export to different tools, or to, let's say, a spreadsheet, and do more like slice and dice. Recently, like I'm just to give an example of, let's say, how you want to use it for a subgraph studio subgraph. So for example, this is a rocket pool subgraph, so you just copy it. You can like paste it here, just replace API key with your API key, and like on the home page, just input here. So for example, this rocket pool data it's pointing to studio subgraph, and the data is directly coming from the studio subgraph. So again, all filtering, browsing, sorting, download to CSV, you can do on the studio subgraph data. Along with that, like recently with able, like we have been working on the publishing like network subgraph metrics. So on the home page, you'll see this network tab. So if you just click on it, it will take you to this Notion page. And there are different metrics published here. So there is network stats, latest network subgraph. For example, let's see this one, top indexers based on. So there are different actors, metrics based on different actors. There's indexer, delegator, curator. So if you, let's say this one, top indexes based on highest query fee collected. So this data is this is powered by the network's analytics subgraph, and yeah, it's loading. Yeah, so it's sorted by the query fee collected in descending order. So for example, the first comes is the protofire indexer, and you can see there's stake tokens, allocated tokens. This is in V. So I mean, if you see this query fee collected, this is this much V. So if you just divide by 18, so you get like 71K GRT query fee collected. And all this data, like it's coming in real time from the subgraph. If you want to do like more filtering or sorting, I mean, you can apply this kind of filters. And similarly, I mean, similarly, other subgraphs, how much query fee, I mean, other indexers, how much query fee they have collected, you can see here. I'll open like couple of more. So this is like network stats, which is total. I mean the graph network data, total net tokens staked, unstacked. Even the Graph Explorer data, I think, is powered by the network subgraph. So this is all in real time, and you can again put conditions from the UI, download to CSV, and do more advanced operations. Uh, I'll show one more use case how so these are like network level metrics. These are like indexer level, then there are delegator level, and then there are curation metrics. You can also monitor your let's say if I want to see what is, I mean, as an indexer, what are graph ops details. So you can just filter in the indexer entity. You can just filter by the display name if you have, or the URL, and you'll see your particular indexer details. So stake tokens, allocated tokens. Similarly, like you can do for specific delegator details. So this is a delegator like the who has done the maximum delegate staking and delegation. So you can put a filter there and uh, see how that what's my stake, what's the reward I'm getting. So one use case I want to show, like Oliver, who has published, I mean, which we closely work and published on Twitter. So yeah, so he published a lot of query field data, which is growing, and he published a lot of charts also. So how he's leveraging Graphlooker is so he connected network subgraph on Graphlooker, and uh, he did a lot of filtering, paginations, and downloaded that data to CSV, and that CSV data then he exported to Excel or some other tools, to get this kind of visualizations. So at the so this is one use case how users are using it. Yeah. So this is I mean this is about Graphlooker. So and this all these metrics are published on the homepage, so you can fully leverage this and directly view this data.
Wonderful. Well, with that, I'd say let's take it to Q&A. So anyone have any particular thoughts on what we just discussed there? Any sort of questions? I posted a few links in the chat. And so yeah, if anyone has any questions, please fire away. Another thing before we get into Q&A is that there's also Graphlooker as well, which allows for more advanced analytics. And yeah, if anyone's interested, we can get into that as well. So yeah, I'll pause here for questions before we move on to the Graphcast section. No questions? Oh, I see some people typing in the chat. Nice.
Yeah, so Derek asked, like, shall we reach out to you with feature requests or specific metrics you desired? So I would say yes. Please, reach out to me. So I mean, whatever feature request you have or any specific metrics, we'll be happy to help out with. So yeah, direct message me, or I'm ready to like chat on these things.
Well, I see Vince from Notified typing, so we'll take his question, and then if anyone else has one, please do shout. Otherwise, we'll move on to the Graphcast section.
Yeah, I'm not sure about this question. I think is it to everyone else? Does anyone know about it?
Okay, I can see the question. Let's circle back on that, Vince, if that's okay. And we'll get that answered in the Q&A section after today's IOH, where we'll have a bit more of an open discussion. So thank you, 𝗨𝗂𝗪, for taking us through all of that. That was highly informative, and I hope it was for many of you too. If you want to get in touch with 𝗨𝗪𝗪, he's here on Discord. And if you guys want to play around with some of the stuff that we discussed, the links are in the chat. And with that, I want to thank you again, 𝗨𝗪𝗪, for joining us, and hand it to Petko, who's going to talk to us a bit about Graphcast.
Thank you, Abel. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm Petko from GraphOps, and today I want to give a quick demonstration on Graphcast. And just to say, I don't have a script, so it's going to be very free-flowing. I expect questions and everything that might arise, because it looks like we do have time to go through everything. So I'm just going to share my screen. There we go. Now you should be seeing the Graphcast presentation. Cool. So Graphcast is the Graphs Gossip Network. So before we were planning to call it a gossip network for indexers, but seeing as in the future it might cater to other use cases and not just for indexers, that's why it's the Graphs Gossip Network. So moving on to a quick overview, just to give an idea of actually what it is with a few words. So it is decentralized, it is distributed, and it's P2P. It's basically a tool for communication that allows indexers at first to exchange information in real time. And it is important to note that exchange of messages happens off-chain. So that is like the main premise. Know that we don't like off-chain things, but in this specific use case, it is actually better to be off-chain, provided the necessary security guarantees and everything. So yeah, it is an off-chain layer. It is independent from on-chain protocol operations, and it is entirely up to the individual indexer if they will add it to their existing indexer stack or not. So they can keep living on without using Graphcast, or they can opt into it. Now, why is it off-chain? Because right now, in order for indexers to communicate and exchange information on chain, they would need to send transactions, and those transactions obviously cost gas. So that kind of leads to a natural pricing out in a way of some type of communication. And but in the same time, that information actually might be useful for the indexer operation. So this will enable that type of communication to happen because the cost of exchanging P2P messages is near zero. Now, why is it near zero and not zero? Obviously, it will not cost anything. Like we're not gonna require ETH or GRT to send and receive messages in Graphcast, but of course, it adds a bit more load to the existing indexer stack, and that load is almost non-existent, like compared to all of the other stuff that the indexers run. But still, like, that is why it's near zero. Obviously, it's on the network, so it takes away some of the bandwidth, but again, it's very, very little. Cool, so because it's near zero, it provides an ideal environment for participants to coordinate without a concern for cost. So literally any message, like the message can be, hello, how are you doing? Like it really, you can send anything, provided you adhere to the security guarantees that we're gonna speak about in a bit. Obviously, with all software, Graphcast will come with trade-offs. For instance, there really is no way to say this message is true. Like, Graphcast can't guarantee the truthfulness of the message. Like, I can say the weather outside is bad, but it can be sunny, right? So we can't embed that in the protocol, but there will be a lot of let's say, rules that are gonna at least limit some things that are obviously false. Like, we're gonna check for the nonce in the message to prevent sending messages that have already been sent. We're going to, and like, yeah, all sorts of just things like that, which not really gonna go into the deeper now, but we cannot provide 100% truthfulness. Cool. Now, how will this Graphcast software exist? So its core will be a SDK, so a software development kit, which will be distributed by us. But of course, it will be built absolutely in the open, so anyone can contribute, anyone can give feedback and everything. So there will be this core Graphcast SDK, and then all of the applications built using that SDK, which are going to be called radios, because they listen to messages in the network, and they can also send messages in the network. So in that sense, it's kind of like broadcasting messages. So there's the Graphcast SDK, which is the core, and then there's the radios, which are applications where every indexer who wants to run a specific radio, they start running it, and they immediately start listening to messages specific to that radio, and they can send messages in the context of that radio. And really, the logic inside of those applications are up to the individual radio developers. So we abstract a lot of stuff away inside of the Graphcast SDK, but then in the individual applications that leverage that interface and build on top of it, honestly, they can do whatever they want. So let's go. Let's just take one step back and touch a bit more on the motivation. So as we mentioned, the Graphcast in general will unlock new forms of healthy communication among indexers. So on top of that, this will make the experience of building building tools for indexers a lot easier, because using the Graphcast SDK, a lot of things will come already built, and there will be kind of a broader standard of building these applications. So, for instance, if anyone wants to build some kind of application for indexers right now, they would need to start from scratch. They would probably use centralized database solutions, which will ultimately lead to data monopolies, because only one team is going to be in charge of that backend. They might want to share information around that application, or they might not. So, yeah, let's just move on. So, on the use cases of this, honestly, the only limit is your imagination, because, as I said, inside of the individual radios, the individual applications that are used within the Graphcast Gossip network, really there can be anything, as long as it adheres to some rules that are imposed by the Graphcast SDK to keep the network healthy. So I've listed some of the future use cases here. I'm not going to read all of them, but yeah, you can check them out. Of course, you can go check out the GRC, because that has a bit more examples and a bit more use cases there. Obviously, all of the feedback on the GRC is more than welcome, because this is still in very, very early stages. There's a question about the repo. Already built-in functions in the SDK. So yes, yeah, thanks Hope for sharing that. I want to stress that that is a proof of concept. So it's not meant to be run right now, but hopefully soon we're going to reach to a MVP stage where we're going to share around and ask for feedback from indexers and the wider community. So let's just move on. Yeah, so just briefly on the tech stack, the Graphcast SDK will probably use Waku, which is a basically just a base layer, which can be used to build gossip networks. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We're going to leverage an existing and battle-tested technology, and we're going to build all of the Graph protocol specific functionality on top of it. Of course, this is not set in stone. So all of the specific tech stack implementations are still up for debate, and all debate and questions and prompts are more than welcome. So it will the Graphcast SDK, at least the first version, will most certainly be built with TypeScript, because most of the indexer stack is in TypeScript, so it's easily added. So right now, the SDK provides some very like the most important things, like identity resolution, so linking the message sender and the Graphcast participant to an existing on-chain indexer address, so that you know who is actually sending the message, so it's not just like some random person. And yeah, again, everything is open source, everything is built in public, so feedback is very, very, very much appreciated. So we do have a proof of concept pretty much ready. Like there's a bit more functions that we want to add to it to say that it's 100% ready and to move on to the MVP. But right now there's a proof of concept that demonstrates a proof of indexing cross-checker. So basically aggregates normalized POIs, and you can compare your normalized POIs to the ones from other participants in the network. And what will happen is it will compare your normalized POI for a given subgraph deployment on a given block with the one that has the most stake tied to it. So it takes all of the normalized POIs coming from the Graphcast network participants. It accumulates the stake, gives you the normalized POI that has the most stake to it, and compares yours to it. And right now, when it detects divergence, it basically updates the cost model for the diverged subgraph deployment so that you opt out of serving queries. So yeah, a bit more on the next steps. Obviously, the reason I'm here today is to collect more feedback from indexers as well as the wider community. This will be especially valuable once we have the MVP running, because that way we can actually give indexers something to run themselves and see if all of our assumptions are valid. So once the proof of concept is ready, we're probably just going to publish the SDK as like npm package or as releases on GitHub or something, so that people can start developing their radios. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We are still working on the proof of concept. Probably be a few more weeks at most until that's ready, and then we can move on to the MVP. Again, everything is open and everything is built and public. Okay, so this slide is left over from the core dev call, so we're not going to be doing a live demo today, just because live demos always crash, and also we're kind of running short on time. So I guess it's time for questions. So I see a question that is something on the lines of if users can run, if users can gossip whatever they want. Well, yes and no. So the message, like the message structure, will be defined by the radio. So by the individual application that leverages the Graphcast SDK. And on top of that, there will be limitations from the Graphcast SDK. But that being said, these are mostly security guarantees, just to keep the network healthy. But overall, I guess anyone can develop a radio that allows for free text in a message, basically. And everyone who may find that useful can run that same radio, and that way they can send messages that just have free text. I mean, honestly, whatever people find useful, they can exchange messages about it in the network freely. Yeah, just on the OFIR topic, yeah, like we can't really deprecate anything, so it's good to have these competing solutions, and it'll be even better because that way we can take ideas from different solutions in order to refine Graphcast ultimately. Adoption is the king. Yeah. Derek, that is an amazing question. So I'm not sure if this is going to be shown in the recording, but is the data structure that is emitted specific to a type of radio, essentially? Yes, I would say yes, because each radio ultimately has the last word on the format of the message. So in the case with the proof of indexing cross-checker, obviously you would have the normalized POI as a part of the message. And by the way, the messages that are being defined in the radio are going to be defined with protobuf. So again, going to be very liberal way of kind of letting people define their message structure in any way that fits their application logic. I hope that answers it. Just one thing that that just came to my head. There's a great comment from Zach on the GRC on the forum, which goes along the lines of Graphcast will enable a simpler, more robust graph protocol, which, like, I think that the meaning is that a lot of communication happening today on chain will be like, alongside of all of the new use cases that Graphcast will enable, a lot of the communication happening on chain today could be moved possibly to Graphcast. Again, it just really depends on if the message can go without all of the guarantees of actually living on chain, or not. Like it's basically a trade-off. It's a trade-off between 100% of security and being free and fast. So again, like, very much depends on the individual use case. So another question, is it intended that we can develop our own radios that other indexers can adopt and generate their own signals messages to? Yes, absolutely. So yeah, basically wherever there's a need for a specific type of application, a specific radio, that radio gets developed, but it will probably be developed by indexers because they are experience the need for this application firsthand, and then other indexers can basically subscribe, because so each radio has like a content topic. It might be one topic, might be many, and then and it's very nice because the multiple radios can effectively communicate with each other as well, because maybe one radio sends messages on a given topic and like 10 other radios want to listen in to the data on that topic. They can do that. So it's like very, very flexible. So it's not like one radio is tied to a specific topic and then only that same radio can listen to that topic. So yeah, again, I hope that answers it, but like, the short version of the answer is it's very, very flexible. So yeah, I hope kind of answered about the message signing. Yes, so when you send messages to the network, they get signed by your gossip operator address, which in the network gets resolved to your on-chain indexer address with a registry contract. Props to Juan who built that registry contract.